Hey, Brad.
Hello.
How are
Hey,
you?
how's it going? Very well,
Very,
thank you.
I am very well. Where are you coming to me from today?
Hamilton, Ontario.
Lovely. So no more Winnipeg in life for you?
I'm not in Winnipeg right now. No, I don't live there anymore.
No,
Where are
you're
you
actually,
coming from?
I'm in Brisbane. So
Oh,
I think you came here on your first tour and you'll be back here on your next tour.
you're exactly right.
Now, let's go straight to the heart of it, Winnipeg. The band generated from Winnipeg. You've had bands like BTO, the Guess Who, even world famous producer Bob Rock is from Winnipeg. What is it about Winnipeg that can create such a great music scene?
Well, my theory is that it's so freaking cold and alienating that either you get into hockey or you join a band. And I was not athletic, so my fate was determined thusly.
So the thing that is actually called Winterpeg is a real thing.
Yes, indeed. Only you're not supposed to say that unless you're from there.
Uh, Very close friend is from there, so he refers
There
to
you
it like
go.
that all the time.
We
Funnily,
can.
funnily enough, in a band.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Now, a lot of Winnipeggers go like Montreal or Toronto. And when did the Crash Test Dummy sort of go, we've got to break out of this town and go and move somewhere else?
Well, we didn't. None of us moved away from Winnipeg until after the band was quite successful. So we didn't really think of it in those terms. Um, uh, like I love Winnipeg, but I just didn't want to live there for the rest of my life, and I was so in love with Manhattan that I moved there. But only when we had had a lot of success on our second record and I could afford to move there.
Sure. Now, the band are coming down again for the first time since '92. The band sort of got back into touring maybe 5 or 6 years ago. Was there a particular reason that you wanted to get back into it?
Well, we got offered a gig with the Winnipeg Symphony Orchestra, and it paid well. So I asked the other band members afterwards how they enjoyed what we just did, and would they like to do it again? And everybody was into doing it again. So we just kind of spontaneously reassembled.
Nice. How have you found touring since coming back on the road to what it was like back in the day?
Back in the day, um, my schedule was much crazier on the road. I'd be getting up at 6 in the morning to do radio interviews and sing the single, and then pretty much filling the day with interviews after that, and then having to do a show at night and not having much time for anything else. Whereas nowadays, I'm able to do the press in advance of the tours, just like we're doing now.
Yep.
And once I get to the actual, country we're touring in, then I'm set up and I can have a kind of more leisurely pace, which is much, much appreciated.
You're about to hit the States for a fairly extensive tour, I think, starting in a week or two, correct?
Yes, indeed.
So what can the fans expect set list wise for them, and will we get any sort of a different set list down here?
Well, you will get a different set list in Brisbane because we were celebrating the 30th anniversary of the God Shuffled His Feet release as we tour Australia. And therefore, we will. I'm sorry,
You're right.
my alarm is going off. I hope I shut that off and didn't just
No, we're
put
good.
sleep. Okay. So, anyways, what was I saying? I'm sorry.
You're talking about the anniversary of the album for here as opposed to the States.
Yeah. So, we're touring Australia on the 30-year anniversary premise because, and we haven't been there in years. And so we will be leaning into God Shoveled His Feet for our set list. I think probably we'll play most, if not all, of the songs on that record. And then there'll be a sprinkling of material from our other records. And that would include a song we put out last year, actually, which we play live to all kinds of applause, which kind of blows my mind because it's new material and people want to hear the old stuff. So I'm always very pleased when that happens.
It's good to actually have a band still want to put out new music. Is there talk about maybe adding more new music for the future?
Yeah, we're going to release another song this coming year, rather. Sorry, 2025.
Does it surprise you how people consume their music these days? Like the days of the album tend to be gone and it's all singles and very social media driven now that exists.
Yes, it really is completely different. When I was young, I used to go buy records and I would take the phone off the hook and turn the lights off and sit down and listen to it from front to back, track by track. And you experienced an album as a collection that was meant to be together. It's not just a question of a bunch of songs by a particular artist going by. It was an experience, like reading a collection of short stories or something. The best records, at least, were like that, in my view. And now we have this kind of streaming context in which we listen, and it's much more about singles. And even I am just writing one song at a time. I'm not bothering to write a record at this point because I don't think people would listen to it.
Fair enough. And you mentioned short stories. People may not know that you graduated with honors in English literature. Have you ever thought about going back and doing anything with that?
No, not really. The only thing you can do with the degree I have is teach. And I really don't want to get involved in teaching. That would not be, in this particular climate especially, it just doesn't appeal at all in this intellectual climate.
Sure. Now, for a band, album sales are great, ticket sales are great, but it tends to be about music placement, getting your music placed in movies, TV, even commercials. And it can be quite lucrative for bands, but it can also be pretty annoying too when you don't realize where your songs are going. Where's the weirdest place you've heard your song?
Where's the weirdest place I've heard my song? Well, that's a good question. I can't really tell you. I don't know that anything really sticks out in my mind in that regard. Of course, Weird Al Yankovic covered our single, so that was maybe an example of that. Do you think?
Yeah. Yeah, he always has his take on it.
Yes, and he was kind enough to release his version of as his first single, so I was quite pleased. That was a real milestone for us.
So do you get anything on the back end with that? Like, do you get class as a co-writer?
So what happens is Weird Al does a deal with the artist where he takes half the publishing for the lyrics that he writes, and the artist that wrote the song to begin with takes half the publishing for the musical end of it.
Right. Yep.
Which is quite a fair deal, and fair dinkum, you might say.
Yep.
And he approaches artists before covering their tunes, and gets their permission, which he doesn't have to do. You don't have to get anybody's permission to do a cover song. You just need to pay them. Yeah. But he does a deal with people, and they agree to it, and it's all hunky-dory.
Awesome. Now, what are you excited about when you get to Australia? Is there something you want to see, want to do while you're here, besides play awesome shows?
Well, unfortunately, when you're on the road touring, you don't have a lot of time down to do stuff. I don't know how we're set this time. Usually what happens is that if we have a day off, that day off is a travel day.
Yeah.
So you spend it on an airplane or in a van.
Yeah.
Knowing that the first time we toured Australia, I stayed there for a couple of weeks at the end of the tour and did a little traveling around myself and saw something of the country. I don't think I will have time to do that this year because once we come off the road from Australia, we'll be presumably diving into another tour. So I won't have time to stay like I did last time.
Okay. Now you mentioned releasing a new single in 25. Have the band projected very far into 25 or what the plans will be besides coming to Australia and a new song?
No, that's about it. I mean, we're looking at dates after Australia, but nothing has been confirmed yet. It's a little bit too early to confirm anything, although one does like to get, these things settled in advance.
Sure. Now, a lot of bands are now releasing archival footage, archival recordings. What does the Crash Test Dummies have in their quote unquote vault that they could probably put out?
Well, the stuff that we have in the vault, I already put out on a collection called Demolitions, which is basically a bunch of songs that I recorded for the record company that they rejected. And I don't know that there's much other stuff out there by Crash Test Dummies that I could collect together to re-release in that vein.
Sure. Would you ever consider putting something out of like a live recording of the newer shows?
Live recordings are expensive to make, and usually when one makes a live recording, one records numerous shows and stitches them together. And I don't know if there would be enough interest in a live recording that it would be fiscally it would make sense fiscally to undertake such a project.
Okay. I know a lot of bands just have their Pro Tools rig and just offer like a digital download straight after the show, warts and all.
I'm so fussy about my voice and how it sounds and how well I sing that I don't know if I'd be happy with any of our live recordings.
Now, speaking of your voice, do you have a particular regime that you'd like to adhere to on the road?
No, I just do a vocal warm-up, half an hour before the show.
Are you one of the vocalists that scream into towels or have special straws that they walk around with? Or you just do your thing?
No, I just sing scales. It's pretty pedestrian.
If it works for you, it works for you. You're the one that's got to get up and sing.
Yes.
Now, before I let you go, I'm going to ask you what you think the best gig you've ever played is and what the worst gig you've ever played is.
Well, I don't know about the best gig. I can tell you that one of the most memorable gigs that I ever played was in Finland. We did a show in the middle of the afternoon one weekend, and there must have been 50,000 Finnish people out under the hot sun in the middle of the day, already completely drunk out of their minds. And when we sang they all burst into song and sang every lyric with me for the whole thing. And that was the first time that it ever happened to me. And that was a pretty big moment.
Yeah.
The worst gig ever was probably a show in California where we were playing with a whole bunch of other bands. And we were staying in a neighborhood. We were staying in one neighborhood.
Yep.
Our hotel, that is, was in one neighborhood. And then our gig was in the next neighborhood over. And I assumed that the next neighborhood over was just part of the neighborhood I was already in because it was quite close.
Yep.
But as you probably know, towns are kind of, self-conscious about their identity. So when I went out on stage and said hello to the crowd, I used the name of the wrong neighborhood.
Oh, yep.
And people started throwing shit at me. We actually had to leave the stage. It's the only time I've ever had people pelt me.
Wow.
Yeah,
Well,
that definitely the worst show ever.
rest assured there'll be no pelting in Australia. There'll be lots of fun. We'll be celebrating a great album. Brad, we look forward to seeing you really soon. Hope the US run goes great and you have a great holiday season, and Crash Test Dummies are here in 2025.
Yes, well, thank you very much for having me on your show, and I can hardly wait for the Australian tour, I must say.
Excellent, mate. We'll see you very soon.
Okay.
Thank you. Goodbye.
All right. Bye-bye.